It's Bri.
And Sam, and welcome to What Are We Doing Here?
Let's get yappin'. We're really doing this.
We're really doing this. Welcome to our first episode of What Are We Doing Here?
And truly, what are we doing here?
Truly, I don't know why I have a microphone in front of me and I'm sitting in front of camera, lights. I don't know what I'm doing. But that feels pretty typical for my everyday, but this feels extra strange. We're going to be figuring this out together. We've never done this. You've probably listened to a couple of podcasts before. But
I don't think you're going to just come across our podcast as the first go round. But, you know, if you did, congratulations. We don't know what we're doing.
Congratulations, and thank you for joining in on our first episode. We're going to talk about how we met. We're going to talk about the continuous yapping of one day at work with my supervisor, and into the continuous yapping to podcasts in text messages, to our boyfriend saying, I've heard everything that you have to say, and to us feeling like we have good advice, are slightly funny, mildly entertaining. I do tend to think that we are quite funny.
I think we're hilarious.
We are the type of people that are talking over the stalls at any place, event, concert, wherever we're going. Our conversation does not stop.
Complimenting people anywhere. We want to be authentically ourselves and honest, open about anything. You want to talk about coffee mugs? We're going to sit and talk about coffee mugs.
We are probably one of the two most open book people that I have met. No topic is off limits. At all.
Ever. That's how we learn. That's how we grow.
And we like people to be a part of our conversations because we think they're great. So, do you want to start about where we met? Do you want me to start? What do you do? Tell us a little bit about you, your social security, your address, all of the things.
My bumper sticker, you know, all the things.
You know, just give us everything everybody could know. Tell us a little bit about you. I know you, but we have new friends.
New friends. Oh my God, let's start out. So I'm a DNA analyst at a private forensics lab. That's where I met Sam. We both have our degrees in forensic science, and I hired her and she started working under me.
Literally, this bitch was my supervisor, and now we're on the podcast.
And you were there for probably 6 months before we had our, a first true, genuine, deep conversation, and straight up paused, and we looked at each other, and we're like, are we best friends now? And like, yeah, I think we're best friends now. And I think since that day, we haven't stopped talking.
No, we have not stopped. We're the type of people that are having two different conversations on Instagram, a conversation in Snapchat, a conversation in text message, and they're all separate. And my mother thinks we're psycho.
Yeah. I mean, it's the noodle brain thought, but I mean, we have conversations about one thing about our schedule, what we're doing, what's happening in one, and then we're talking about something completely different in another, and then completely different, but they're all going continuously.
We're following them perfectly, and you will lead from point A all the way to D, back to E, to F, to Z, and all the way back to Q and Z.
But I think one of the things that really got us starting on our friendship was you had told me a story, and you were like, I don't usually do this, but I'm gonna say this, I'm gonna just say it. And you said it, and I was like, cool, all right, tell me more. And you were like, what? And I was like, yeah, I want to know more. And then I was like, oh, all right, I'll tell you a story. And I think just us being so true and genuine to ourselves and being like, you know what, I'm going to take a chance and trust this person, and I'm going to tell them something. And then we were like, oh, okay, this is your experience, this is my experience. Let's talk and let's do this. And
yeah, we didn't start with simple, what do you like to do? We went trauma, relationships, bad relationships, and just kind of started deep. You accepted kind of what I started talking about. You then told me, and we were like, oh, wait, we're both in our 20s. You have probably have children. And so different stages of life, but both in our 20s, different path. But you're, what, a couple months older than I am? But a very different life.
Yeah, very, very different life. I mean, even when we met, I was on the verge of getting a divorce. Since then, I have gotten said divorce.
Said divorce did happen.
It happened. It has been long gone, and now we're in a healthy relationship. You talked about things going on in your life and how stressful corporate America was for you, and that was making you really unhappy, even though you loved forensics. And
yeah,
that kind of started that.
Yeah, and I mean, you were training me, and so right at the beginning, you're the person that's teaching me all of the things about forensics. You're teaching me about how the job works, and we worked in, like she said, a DNA lab, and so there's a lot of procedures, a lot of SOPs, a lot of things that had to be specific, and a lot of training. Like, I got my master's degree in forensics, but I didn't have, like, the real world experience, like the actual lab experience, and so you trained me, and so we were spending 8 hours a day for a couple weeks together, and just started, instead, we worked and talked about the things that we needed to learn. I did learn things.
Well, I did do my job. I was a good supervisor.
We did do good job. And then we started talking, about my past relationship trauma and my things that I was going through. You started talking to me about your ex relationship, and I didn't tell you, and that was something that I think we bonded over, of I didn't tell you to do anything. I didn't say you should leave or you should stay or I didn't say a goddamn word of that. And we can get into that later, but I think that's so important in relationships when you are talking about, like, things that might not be the best type of healthy relationship. You can't tell somebody to leave. We can do a whole episode about that.
Yeah. Well, I think that goes into anything, though. Like, anybody going through any type of hardship in life, you can't be like, oh, this is your solution. Like, I think a lot of people want to talk about it and they want to almost feel validated, but they want honest feedback too. So if you go, hey, like, I don't think that's kind of cool, and, like, there's this, and hey, I went through this, and you relate to them, people have to draw their own conclusions. And I think that's what me and you really, I was never pushed by you to do anything, and I don't think you've ever felt pushed by me to do anything one way or another. We genuinely want each other to be happy and, like, grow as human beings and be a good person.
Be a good goddamn person.
Be a good human being, and that's what we've been trying to do. But I think you're never going to know in a forensics lab how it is. You can't get that experience. I mean, there's other people on the other side of these cases. You're in a lab 8 hours a day
with no windows.
Years, with no windows, limited human interaction. Like, sometimes it's great, sometimes it's not. Sometimes it's very hard, it's very stressful. It's not an easy job. And then on top of that, you have to go to court and testify. I want to say all the time, but it's really not all the time.
It's not all the time, but it feels intense that it feels like all the time.
It's intense. It's intense. And so that is it's a very stressful job.
Yeah. And finding that, like, not telling you what to do, like, we got to bond over just stories and experiences. And at that time, you weren't so open about feelings. You were not a feeling person.
I didn't know how to say, I feel like blank. It was, this is what's going on. It was very analytical. It was very, like...
Very analytical is a good word.
It was very, hey, this is what's going on, this is what's going on, this is what's going on. But, like, if you were like, and how do you feel? I'd be like, this is what's happening. And you're like, what feeling is associated with what is going on? And
you used to say, I don't know how to do feelings. I avoid feelings.
Yeah, that was a dark place.
Well, it's a place that is scary because you're afraid of the emotions. And the reason we bonded over that was because that was me, like, 5 years ago. 5 years ago, I got into health and fitness, therapy. I got into a lot of different things 5 years ago. I mean, I started therapy before that, but 5 years ago, I did a whole, like, 360, 180. 360 sounds stupid because you turn up in the same place, but a whole 180, is that right?
Yeah. You flipped. I was like, 360 sounds wrong because you're going and you're ending up in the same spot. A 180 is a complete flip from where you were at, so I think a 180 is right.
Yeah, I did a 180 and finally I had tried working out for years and couldn't really get it to stick. I would do 2 weeks on, 2 months off. I called it yo-yoing. I yo-yoed for years, and then 5 years ago, I finally started doing at-home fitness, and it finally stuck. And that was a big life change because not only did I start doing, like, deep dive therapy, but I started, like, becoming a health and fitness coach. Like, I was the person posting motivational things on my Instagram constantly, and that's something that I learned that I knew I was good at, knew I enjoyed, but didn't really like put any application into it until I started doing the online health coaching. That kept me consistent, and it really kind of brought me into this entrepreneurial space, whatever. Somebody will correct me. Somebody will tell me how to say it. Got me into like the health and fitness and the coaching. And so I started really opening up about my emotions and start doing, you know, I'm a journal person. Like I journal every morning, have for 5 years. And so started really getting into emotions. And then at that time you weren't, but I was so open about talking about emotions. You were like,
so into it.
I was so into it. I mean, I still am. That's clearly,
yes.
That's what I enjoy doing.
There now, yes.
But you were like, oh wait, it's not that scary.
I think that was the big thing, is it turned into, oh, I can say like, hey, this really, like, I'm upset, or I'm really tired, or I'm angry, or I'm happy, or I'm, you know, like, all right, hey, like, it wasn't just oh, this is just what it is, I just gotta keep going. Mm-hmm. It was hang on, I don't know if this really truly makes me happy.
You were also in a place that didn't have the ability to have emotions. You had to keep your head down. You had children to keep alive and feed, and they were young. Mm-hmm. They were babies, and so you were in survival mode.
Yes, and so now on the flip side of that, I can recognize that, and I mean, now we talk about it. You tell me all the time, little motivational coach.
You're so good at it, though.
You're talking about it, but not only now have I taken that, but now I do it to other people.
Mm-hmm.
So, I mean, so from forensics, me and Sam were there. Sam then told me, like, I'm not happy doing this, and I'm going to leave in 6 months to a year. And I said, okay, you got to do what's best for you. And she was like, okay. And I was like, yeah, like, I want the best for you. I don't want you just to keep this job just to stay here with me. I was like, we're going to be friends regardless.
Yep.
And so Sam left. We still talked every day.
Yep.
Every day. But then it started turning into these voice memos. So, I mean, I feel like in high school, I was so into texting and everything. And even in college, I texted and texted and texted. Like, I would never call anybody. I wouldn't do anything.
Yep.
And then now, I hate texting, and everything is voice memos. Everything. I'll call
Everything.
you. I'll call you, but it's so hard sometimes to continue on with life when you're on the phone with somebody. Like, hello, okay, hang on, I got to do everything one-handed. Like, you have to. So if I send a voice message, then I can send the voice message, continue with what I'm doing, and then go on. So, Yappers here. 20-minute voice messages turned into, hello, welcome to my podcast of the day.
You started just joking about having a podcast.
Funny. Yeah, I joked about it with you. I joked about it with James, and I was like, hi, and welcome to my podcast of the day, because I was like, oh, this is going to be short. We always used to joke, okay, this isn't going to be a long voice message. This isn't going to be a long voice message. And then you get down with it, you send it, and it's like 20 minutes, and I'm like, oh, and then follow-up voice message. Sorry, that was 20 minutes. I know I said it was going to be short, or we laughed because it'd be like, okay, I think that's it. And you look down at the voice message, and there's...
And you've got 10 more minutes of this thing, and you're like, I know you're not done. You'll get halfway through and be like, oh, I don't think I have anything else to talk about. And I look down, you got 10 more minutes. I know you got a lot of shit to talk about.
I mean, it's the same. You do it too. You'll be like, I don't remember what I was going to tell you. And I look, and I'm like, she remembers here in a second, because there's still 5 more minutes left. And then you're like, oh, I remember, which is great. So
and you started turning it into just a podcast and accepting that we were just yapping. It didn't matter yapping together or yapping on voice message podcasts.
Well, because I knew, we had talked about it too, like, life's busy, but I had 20 minutes on the car ride home, and you're not off of work. And then you get off of work, and I have kids, and you have 20 minutes. So it's like you would listen and respond, and then we'd listen and respond and listen and respond. And if we caught each other on a phone call, then great, that we would talk for an hour and a half or whatever. But
but it was just very different schedules. I work from home now. I left that job, work from home now, doing tech support. So there are times that I can take a call, sometimes I can't. Then sometimes you have kids in the background. Sometimes you're doing groceries when you are not under the weeds of screaming children. Like, it just, voice messages just worked. And then one day we said, why don't we have a podcast? Like,
well, we had talked about a couple times, like, hey, we want to do something together. Like, can we do a business, or can we do a craft, or can we do whatever? And we were like, what's a mutual interest? Not that we don't have a lot of them, but we have quite a few, but they kind of vary. It's like you have fitness, I have crafts, I have books, you have life coach. like, you guys are now doing the woodworking. Like,
Yep.
I know nothing about the woodworking, but, like, more on the artsy side. And, like, so it's, like, trying to find something that we could both do together and enjoy. And then we were like, someone had asked you, hey, you should, like, really just start your own podcast. Like, I listened to your stories on Instagram, and your stories
People
are so
really liked, like, my energy and the advice that I was giving, and I am a person, like, we've talked about a million times, we don't want yes friends. We don't want people that are just going to say, yes, do whatever you want, or, like, that sounds good. Like, I wanted people that were, like, real and honest and whatever, and so I just enjoy talking in my stories. It's kind of like my therapy. I do a lot of just spews, random just like rants about things that I need to hear, because that's really how I've been able to help myself. I struggle with anxiety. You'll hear that come up a million times, but like it helps my anxiety so much when I help other people. And somebody, asked me if I wanted to do a podcast, or told me like, you should do a podcast, because I was like, maybe I'll write a book one day. And I talk way better than I write. Props to my mom, who's a freaking writer and would help me, but not my skill.
I can't write. I could talk. I can't write. Science.
No science. Words. I can write a procedure and a resume, no doubt.
I can do math, but I cannot write.
No, I am so bad at that.
Tell them about your dishwasher story, because I mean that thing's huge. I feel like we've been living off of that motto forever, that you cannot load a dishwasher incorrectly. There's no rules when loading the dishwasher.
There's no rules. We have been living off that since September is when I heard it. And I had it apparently, how do I phrase this? So I had talked on my Instagram story years ago and said I was loading the dishwasher, and I was talking about how I was putting so much stress that the dishwasher had to be loaded one way, or it had to be full before I loaded it. Like, I couldn't run it unless it was full. And I kind of was just talking myself through it, like, why am I putting so much pressure on this damn dishwasher? It's a dishwasher. And I said on my story, there's no rules when loading the dishwasher. Now, I didn't think of this story, didn't remember I even said it. I was home visiting my friends, and my two friends was like, hey, I have to tell you something. Like, this thing that you said has become an inside joke of our relationship. And I love them both together. They just got engaged. Did I tell you that?
Yeah.
They got engaged, and their ring is gorgeous. Shout out. But they had said this became... You know who you are. They said that this had become like a funny thing, that they became an inside joke. I mean, this was probably 2021, maybe? Like, it was...
4 years ago?
Yeah, it was early. And when they had a decision of like, well, we can do whatever we want, like, there's no rules when loading the dishwasher. And it started as like a funny thing for them when it like didn't really matter. They would just say it. And then they kind of turned it into this like motivational of like, if I want to go move across the country, like, there's no rules when loading the dishwasher. And so they told me this, and I was like, holy shit, like, I put so much pressure, and you do too, of like being good and being right and doing the right thing and
the house
progress.
has to be clean, and the laundry has to be done, and the dishes can't be in the sink.
And it's Sunday, so you have to meal prep for the week, and you have to go grocery shopping today because, heaven forbid, you can't do it any other day. Like, we put so much, honestly, fake pressure and fake rules around this that we started saying, there's no rules when loading the dishwasher. Like, you get one life to live. You get one chance at this. Like, don't make arbitrary rules when loading a dishwasher, and you could do that. And so when somebody suggested, hey, you guys, like, you should have a podcast, I texted you and I said, how do you feel about having a podcast? And we said...
And I said, yeah, all right. I said, there's no rules when loading the dishwasher.
There's no rules.
You said, you really? I didn't know how you were going to feel about this. And I was like, I mean, we talk so much anyways, like, why not? Like, why not? Even if this went nowhere, this is just another opportunity for us to talk and chit-chat and just learn and grow from each other. Because like you said, we don't want yes friends. When I ask you, hey, I'm thinking about doing this, do you think this is a good idea? I don't want you to be like, yeah, and then really be like, I think that's a dumb idea. Like,
I think that's stupid,
I want you to go, I don't think that's the best idea. And I'd go, okay, great. Why? And you're going to go, all right, I don't think it's a good idea because of X, Y, and Z. And I'm like, all right, well, what about X, Y, and Z? And we're going to have a conversation about it. We're going to have dialect. We're going to communicate. And in the end, we're still best friends, but I know I can trust you. I think there was something, I literally saw it on Instagram where it's like, you have to be honest with your partner that if your partner came in and said, hey, do I look good in these pants, or do I look fat in this dress? You have to say yes or no. You have to say truly what's going on, because you want them to look their best. But then when they're 80 and they're old and they're in bed and they go, do you still think I look attractive? Like, do you still love me? And you go, I never loved you more. You can believe them. So
you have that trust of it.
You have that trust that you can believe what they're saying.
Because if I told you things and you always said, yeah, go do it, or yeah, that's harder to go.
Am I right here? Yeah, I think you're always right. It's like, I know I'm not always right. I know I'm wrong.
You've told me I'm wrong, and I've told you you're wrong. I've told you,
absolutely,
don't do that. Let's try and do it this way. But there's the intention and the safe, like, I'm trying to truly look out for you and have your best interest, like, and we didn't want, like, people with that, and as you could tell, like, we are just very open, and we like talking about these things, and we want to grow. Like, where we're at is a lot better than where both of us ever used to be, but we still have more that we want.
Yeah. Or like you said, we're a few months apart, but we have very different life experiences and at different places in our life, and I think that's okay for people to understand that you might be, you know, in your 20s and be a single mom or be a parent or be whatever, and you also might be in your 20s and you might be, you know, still making your way through college. You might barely have your first job. Like, you might just be moving out of your parents' house. Like, all of it is fine, and I think we're all, that doesn't mean that I can't learn from you and you can't learn from me, and there's not stuff that we can talk about.
Yeah, I like that. And, like, the reason we called it, like, we're trying to figure this out, too. We wanted a place to talk, and instead of always sending voice messages, like, we get dedicated time to see each other, and we're figuring this out. You're at a very different spot than I am, but you've taught me a ton of things. I've taught you a ton of things, and we have good advice, and wanted to share that. We wanted to bring people into our conversation about figuring life out.
Because as we talk about things and go back and forth, we're going to ask a lot of why do you feel this way? Why do you think you do this? And maybe that'll relate to somebody. Maybe that'll help you out if you don't have somebody in your life who does this, or, you know, I don't know.
People that are not open, like, not everybody has a very open friend.
Maybe this will help you. I mean, we even came from not having open friends to being like, oh, hey,
hey, this isn't that scary.
We're here.
And calling it, what are we doing here, is a question that we quite often ask ourselves, like, what are we doing here? Like, there's a million things we want to do, and we're just figuring it out one day at a time.
So be like, so maybe as you listen to these episodes, like, you'll hear something that resonates with you or makes you want to talk about with your friends. And I think that open communication would be good. Maybe you hear something we say that just clicks with you. And if you do, like, let us know.
Let us know. We've got Instagram, TikTok, YouTube. This will be on Spotify and Apple Podcasts if we can get there.
We'll get there.
We'll get there, absolutely.
Eventually. But yeah, I mean, if anything we say resonates with you, reach out to us. If you want us to talk about something, let us know. We might not know much about it, but hey, I'll learn.
Yeah.
You'll learn.
And truly, like, there are things that we've talked about. We are people that, at least I am 4,000% sure that I have ADHD. Like I said, we're going to noodle from A to Z to D to E all the way back to F. Like, we're going to be all around. We're going to make it full circle 95% of the time. But if that's how your brain works and you want people that are real, honest, open, I know social media is a ton of nonsense, a ton of fake, just highlight reel. Like, that's not going to be this. This is not going to be a highlight reel. This is going to be a lot of, like, deep dive into anxiety, trauma, witchy woo-woo, which is universe, spirituality, like, belief system, like, what else is out there. We don't have all the answers to this. There will be things that we say wrong, and that's the point. Like, there is no perfection. Like, that isn't what we're going for.
I mean, we're going to talk about relationships, books. I mean, I'm going to talk about being a mom, you know, a working full-time single mom. I mean, list the things that we could talk about, and I mean, we're going to talk about it. And like Sam said, this isn't a highlight reel. This isn't the beauty of everything. This is going to be raw, unfiltered. You get what you get, and this is really what life is, because it makes you feel less guilty, honestly.
It makes you feel a lot less alone.
So, I mean, as you settle in, you listen to our lovely podcast here, hopefully you feel less alone and more like, oh, their life is crazy. My life is crazy. Like, everyone's crazy is a little different, and that's okay.
And if you think you have friends that would enjoy this, that would enjoy A to Z and conversations over the stalls at a concert, at a venue, at a basketball game, send them this. It's on Spotify and Apple Podcasts. And thank you so much for joining.
Thank you for listening to What Are We Doing Here?
Dun dun dun!
I mean, we're going to have to put explicit on it anyways, given our track record.
Unfortunately, cannot speak without swearing, but that is quite funny. If I do say so myself. All right, let's do the intro.